Today's topic is going to be on plastic welding. So I'm going to get a few things set up, let everyone filter in, and then we'll get started. Welcome guys on this Saturday. We're getting started here a few minutes early, but we'll let everyone filter in. All right. We've got a few more minutes to go, but we'll finish setting up here a little bit. All right, guys, welcome to our Saturday Live. We're back again, doing it like we always do, every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time. And I know people will filter in as we go here, so if I got any of my mods in, please drop a comment down below. That way I know when my mods come in. I'm going to set up my chat quick for you guys. That way I can see all chats. Okay, I think we've got all that set up. All right. Double check my internet connection for you guys. All right, we're good there. All right, guys, welcome to our Saturday Live. We're starting just a hair early. I'm going to try to be a little bit more on time with my lives. Try to stay right to that 1 p.m. Central Time. I do like to give everyone a few minutes to click in, kind of settle in a bit. Mods, make sure you guys chat up down below. I'd like to know when my mods are here. That way I can keep track of my mods. And for you guys, make sure you hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. We're really trying to grow this channel this year. It's really important. We have a lot of content coming your guys' way. I will show you a sneak peek after we get into the video a little bit today. But there's a lot going on our Malibu. If you guys are a regular to the channel, you guys already know that Malibu steel is a regular vehicle on this channel. It's an 2012 Malibu LT. We've done timing on this thing. Guys, there's a long video on that. If you guys get a chance at the end, go over and check out that timing video. It'll explain where the timing marks need to be when you're replacing that chain, and why we have to change that chain out when the vehicle only has like 130,000 miles on it. It's because that chain stretches. And if it stretches too far, it's going to jump. And once it jumps, it's going to jump out of time. The valves are going to smash against the piston and destroy over a $2,000 engine. So it's better to get to this thing before it gets to that point than to let it go any farther. When we did ours, it was right at the verge of needing to be done. Had we waited any longer, it would have been a really bad thing. The chain was loose on the top guide. You guys get a chance, go check out that video. It's an awesome video. If I can get a chance, maybe I can try to link it down below. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that on stream for you guys today or not. Today, we're working on plastic welding. This is one area that we have to do in order for me to continue putting this car back together. Is until I get this tab welded back on here and somehow put a metal tab across here, then I can't put this back in and I can't put it back on the vehicle. We're also going to do a few other things today. My reasoning for that is I'm really trying to get this car done. And the reason I need to get this car done is because we also have another project coming up later on this year as a complete motor build for the Crimson Vortec, our 01 GMC Jimmy. So we're going to get a junkyard motor. We're going to tear it down and go through it top to bottom. And I'll show you guys the tricks to taking old school engines and really bringing the horsepower up on them. Very little things need to be done to old school motors to give them horsepower. Oftentimes from the factory, especially around that 2000s range or even through the 90s, what they did was they lowered the compression on the engines, meaning they had a lot lower compression than what they do today. Today they bump the compression up. I can explain why, but at first I need you guys to make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you guys get those likes up, because that's what's going to help us grow this channel. I don't pay for any of my or getting it bots or anything like that. I hate that. I want my stuff to be organic. So when you guys help me grow, when you guys subscribe, when you guys like, and the subscribes really, really do help, because right now I need to get my subscriber count up to really reach people. All right, that's enough of that. Let's get on to plastic welding. So what did I do here? You guys were watching me do something as I was doing this video. You guys noticed me taping this little tab on. Now, most people would say, well, why don't you just glue it on? Here's the problem. Glue doesn't work if there's any vibration nearby. This will have vibration because this is a shield on the radiator. So every time the fan kicks in, it's going to vibrate this. If I don't make this a solid connection like it was from factory, it's just going to break again. Glue only works when there's no vibration involved and it really doesn't have to go under a heavy load. So that's why I don't use glue. I was thinking about showing like a video of the glue and then showing this, but I chose to go against that because I didn't want to give people the wrong impression. We shouldn't be using glue on stuff like this. We should really plastic weld it in and make sure that it's solid. Now, the tricks to making it look professional, making it look good, and not having it stand out when you plastic weld is realize what sides are going to be visible. Okay, so this side is going to be visible from underneath the hood if I remove the shield. Let's take a look at that on the car real quick. Okay, so that shield is right there, guys. This is the one on the driver's side. I'm holding the passenger one in my hand. So this is going to be more visible on this back side when we access that headlight. In here, we're going to notice it through the grill, but here's the difference. We don't get to see it through the grill because this shield sits right here. The shield covers that up, so we don't see that piece. So when we go to plastic weld this, the cleanest weld is going to be on that inside. Meaning that if we have any extra slag or anything that doesn't lay flush, it's going to be better hidden here than what it would here. And some of that is just because of the plastic pieces that we have and how tight the angles are. When we're standing here from the side, we can't even see that tab. So when plastic welding, this is what we need to figure out. What looks the best? And what does the best to hide the damage? And the reason that's important on plastic welding is you're not going to get it perfect. Plastic welding does not come out perfect. There's always some slag that you have to file off. There's also metal tabs and wires. So let's get our plastic welder open. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Now, some of these clips are called staples, just how they do it. So choosing the right staple also matters. So we have a whole bag of staples here, and I've got quite a few staples here in this bag. kit also comes with a little snip. This is designed to trim it flat once you've welded it into the plastic. Again, you might be asking, why are we doing this? Why are we welding this? Because it's a place that has vibration. Glue's not going to work. Tape's not going to work. Eventually the tape will break because it's exposed to outside elements. So that isn't going to be a long-term solution. That panel is buried once that bumper cover's on. So if we don't get a good solid connection, we're not going to be able to easily access it to fix it again. Meaning that we need to make sure our repair is solid right away. We can't afford to be having a bad repair on this. So I'm going to get one of these staples out, and here's something you can do. If you're not comfortable using the plastic welder, find another piece of plastic to practice on before you go on to the panel that you're going to do. Thing is to practice on a panel that's the same thickness. If you practice on one that's much thicker, it isn't going to give you the same results. I've gotten rid of the bumper cover already that is damaged from the deer hit, so I can't even practice on the old bumper, and I wouldn't want to. The reason why is that old bumper is much thicker material, and it would throw off my weld. It wouldn't hold like it should because it's not made of the same thickness and kind of even not even the same material. The bumper cover is more rubberized, where this is a hard plastic. So here's my staple right here. And the way these work is the end of that gun has two little holes in it. What we do is we just slide this onto here. And then what we'll do is we hit the trigger with this plugged in. It heats this up, and it gets it hot enough that when we press it to the plastic, it'll weld it. And then this little piece of wire becomes the hard support for this bracket. Now the trick is we want to do this in a way that we have access. So what you guys are seeing me do is kind of line things up, figure out exactly the way I want to lay this in here before I go doing my weld. And the trick is you want to go across the break of the plastic. Right now you guys see a zigzag pattern. You see a zigzag pattern in that wire. You want that wire to pretty much go where the crack of that plastic is right in the middle of that wire. So the wire weaves back and forth across there. A lot of people don't explain that. They'll just go ahead and make fire and press it and make it look cool, but they're not explaining to you why they do it that way. The reason why we do it this way is to actually stitch that crack together. And by going through the center of that weave, we can actually stitch it back together to where it's not going to come apart. Now, will it break? It can, and it can break further down too, which makes it more complicated. But we can't just go throwing a bunch of staples in it. The best is only to do one, get it as clean as we can possibly get it, and get it down in there and leave it. So how these work is when we press this, we're going to heat it up. As it heats up, we're going to make sure it's nice and hot. Then we're going to press it into that crack and stitch that back together. What you guys seen me do was put a piece of tape on this just a little bit ago. This tape helps hold that panel together as we weld it. Now, I don't want to push it all the way through and have it adhere to the tape, but if it happens, I'm not too upset about it. I can easily trim the tape and leave it there if I need to, but that's not really my plan. So, all right. Guys, thank you for tuning in on this Saturday. Again, we do this live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central. We have a lot of content coming you guys' way. So this Malibu is in the middle of this project. So make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Really help us build this channel for this year so we can keep bringing you guys new projects every week. I'm gonna grab my cord quick, and then we're gonna set up to plastic weld this. So some of my goal today, guys, is I want to get this done, and I want to get some other things done on the car today. So plastic welding is the main topic today, but there's some miscellaneous things I want to get done. And I'm trying not to do projects on this car without you guys seeing what's going on, because it doesn't help. This is one thing that I don't like doing. I know you guys tune in normally for the content, see the projects, see how they work, see my frustration sometimes when they don't. But if I don't show you guys every step as I'm doing this, you guys aren't going to understand sometimes where that frustration comes from or problems that you're going to run into. So by me taking the time to slow things down and not just speed through a project, to be honest with you, if I was doing this on my own, I could have blazed through this thing in about 2-3 weeks. Again, you guys wouldn't have gotten all the content from it. You guys would have gotten bits and pieces of this part of the project, but you wouldn't have gotten the whole experience. This car has a lot going on. You guys already saw the bumper. I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek of what's going on. All right, so we know about the bumper cover. What you guys don't know is we're changing those headlights. I have wiring that needs to get changed today. I would like to get the other headlight put on the other side. I need to remove that tire off the car today so I can get that ramp back. Next week's project is going to be about buying a used car. I'm going to do basically a 2025 version of a video I made back in 2024 that's on buying used cars. So in order to do that, I need that ramp back for that next week's video, meaning I needed to get this tire off. Guys, the pile of parts here is no joke. We have shocks, we have struts, we have sway bar end links, and we have rear wheel bearings. So there's a lot coming your guys' way as far as content. I'm planning this out very far in advance. And in order to do this, I need to make sure that the project stays on task. So in order to do that today, we're going to be doing more than just the plastic weld. That was kind of my point here. So now that I got my clip in, I'm plugged into the wall. I've got everything ready to go. I'm going to make sure that clip is in there where I want it. I'm going to look at my tab, make sure my tab is in a good place. And I'm also going to kind of pre-line up where I need to go. Now, don't press the button yet. And also know that when you press that button, these prongs are going to get hot. Meaning that if I take and press the prong to the basically this plastic piece to that copper, I'm going to weld the copper to this. So this is going to get hot along with that wire. It's not just going to be the wire. So when I do this, I need to make sure that I'm as careful as I possibly can be and get that weld down in where I need it. All right, so position myself here so you guys can see. What's going on here better, because I do have to hold this very straight. And I need a good angle. So if I don't have a good angle, I want to work until I find a good angle that I'm going to be able to get it in there. Okay, here's something with extension cords, guys, so a little side trick for you. With extension cords, anytime you're running a cord, let's say you plug this in and it's loose and it wants to fall out a little bit, what you can do is bend the prongs apart slightly. What that does is keeps it from slopping out of the cord. Don't get too carried away because you don't want to bend it really bad or break the prongs off. But just enough that when you plug it in, it wants to stay inside the socket. So all right, here we go, the big moment that everyone's been waiting for, and the one that I've needed to be able to get this done today. My goal, again, is to get as much done on this car as I can, and this is kind of holding me up from moving forward with the bumper. So I'm seeing a little smoke out of the wire. It's heating up. It's getting hot. And it's starting to glow. We want a little bit of a glow on that wire, so that when we press it into the plastic, it'll melt in. Okay, so I got it hot enough. I'm pulling it back. So I will show you guys everything in just a bit, how this worked. This is how we do it. Guys, hit that like button, please. It really does help the channel. I bring you guys solid content every week. Likes are free. It really does help us grow and helps us do more projects like this, or even more extensive, the suspension stuff that we've got coming up on Malibu steel. And later in the year, we're going to have that engine build for Crimson Vortec. So again, hit it, show your love and support. We really do need it to move forward. So as this cools, I need to let this kind of cool down naturally. I don't want to force it and try to cool this off quickly. I want to let it just cool down by itself. And I can wiggle it a little bit, but I don't want to get crazy until everything's cooled down. We will have to cut those little tabs off on here. I know they're hard to see. You got a good view of the one right there. So those two little tabs got to get cut off. We're going to do that in just a little bit. If you guys got any questions about your own projects, you can chat those in. I will try to answer those as we go. Okay, so I've removed the tape. This is a good sign, because when you remove the tape and it's still holding, that means your plastic weld was successful. So I'm just tapping on it a little bit, making sure that it's in there, it's firm, that the wire's doing what it's supposed to. We did stitch across the weld with 3 different wires. So 3 wires zigzagged through the crack. That's a good plastic weld. That means it's solid. If we would have went to where there was only 1 wire holding it, I would be more concerned about the strength and stability of it. Again, those welds need to be basically surrounded. Now, there's a way to add more strength to this. And what we could do is melt a zip tie across this, and we could get an even stronger kind of weld, and basically it would keep anything from coming out as far as the wire goes. The other thing we can do is we can bend these clips rather than cutting them off, and we can use that to kind of help brace it even more. The only reason I don't like doing the bending of the clip method is because if you bend them in the wrong spot and you're putting the panel in, you could hook those wires and tear the tab right back off. So usually I do like to snip those off and try to snip them as flush as I can. So this is cooled off. It's cool to the touch. I've been touching it a little bit here, so we're good there. Next, I'm going to grab the cutter. All right. So, guys, you see me do a tool video here. What was it? Probably about a month or so ago, I did a tool video. The tool was basically buying the more affordable tools that you can get at Harbor Freight or online, but it is a buyer beware. Again, if you're buying something that you're going to use on a regular basis, buy a higher quality, like a torque wrench. If you're going to buy a torque wrench, don't buy a base model torque wrench. Don't buy a no-name torque wrench. It will come back to bite you, trust me. If you're trying to buy tools that you're going to just use one time, or you only need to do a little bit of stuff like this plastic welding, this is an Amazon kit. No, I don't have an Amazon affiliate, so I don't have those links that drop down below. But you can go on Amazon and you can pick up any of the plastic welding kits. They'll pretty much work for most car stuff. Again, if you're doing heavier bumpers, you can't use the set I bought. This only comes with the very small little wires. Works great for small plastic. Does not work on a heavy bumper. So, just getting down there as low as I can, and then I'm snipping it off. And that wire fell back behind me somewhere, so I will probably have to find that with a magnet. And I'm going to do this other one right here. That one almost went in the garbage. Good aim. So now that I've got these snipped down to where they're not going to get in the way, the wire's in there pretty decent. I don't see any spots where it's going to come loose. The tab is pretty sturdy. I mean, I'm able to wiggle it quite a bit. This panel's ready to finally go on. This was holding me up from assembling the front bumper. So, like I said, next week we do have a video coming up on buying used cars. So I want that to kind of be the focus for next week. But the following week, we are going to work on getting this bumper on it and starting to get the suspension torn out. We're going to do some stuff today. I don't know how much I'm going to get done today. The goal is to get as far as I can. Now, there's one more spot that I need to fix right here. There's supposed to be a piece of plastic that goes across here, leaving a small little hole, and it clips onto another plastic piece underneath the hood that sits on top of my radiator. So there's a small shield that sits up on top of this and clips into this. Because that piece is broken out and I don't have it, like it's gone, it fell out probably during the deer hit. What I'm going to do is see if I can get a piece of wire that I could put in there and just weld across there. And we'll use that wire as the catch. So this is getting a little bit more creative because we're going to have to bend one of the wires. Actually, I found one that'll work really good. I'll show you guys here in just a bit. So this kit comes with a bunch of different style wires. Some of them are wavy, some of them are not. Some got a small wave, some got a big wave. Some have a lot of wire to it, other ones don't have much. So the one I'm choosing to fix this with is this little guy right here. So this one doesn't have too much wave to it, and it should work excellent for bridging this gap in between here. Again, this will give that something to bite into, and just for that little clip to hold on to the wire. Now this wire will be exposed. This one melted down into the plastic. This one's not going to. And you're probably asking, well then, how is it going to get held in there if we just weld it in this way? So what's going to happen is we're going to basically try to find a spot that we can weld into both ends of the plastic. So something just like this. We're going to weld into both ends of this plastic, and that is going to be what's going to hold on either side. This isn't a strong repair at this point. It would be better if I had a little bit bigger wire, but that's not what I have in the kit, so I have to kind of make do with what I got. So Okay. We're gonna let this cool off. It's in there and it's welded. That'll give it a little tab for it to connect to. Again, when setting this down, remember that brass is hot. So if you set this on cardboard, you could light the cardboard on fire. Also, when you're welding your plastic pieces, don't let the copper touch the plastic. It'll melt the plastic. So we're gonna let this cool off and then we're gonna test it to see if it's strong enough. And I'm hoping that I was able to get it strong enough to where it didn't completely melt away any of the support that it has. Okay, just testing it. Yep, feels good. So nice and solid. I can rub my finger across it. And this is just something that's going to hold that shield. That's all it needs to do is just hold it. There'll be a little bit of vibration against it, but it's not going to be a super strong amount. Again, we can't use glue in this situation because glue will not work. All right. Nope, I tried to bend that out or snap it off and it just broke out of there. There wasn't enough plastic to actually hold that piece in there. So in order to fix this little tab, we can get creative. We can do a bunch of other different stuff to kind of get this to work back without having the original plastic piece to weld back in here. We can't get enough strength. So the wire is not enough. There isn't enough support on either side here to hold that in. There isn't enough support there. And without having support when you're doing plastic welding, the plastic weld will not stay. Meaning that you can't just try to bridge a gap with a hole in it because that hole doesn't provide any support. And the wire itself is not going to be enough of a support. So again, we tried it. You guys saw it. Didn't work. All right, guys, there's 91 or 97 of you in here, 77 of you in here. Please hit that like button. We're really trying to grow this channel. So what we're going to do next is we're going to move on. Oh, we got a chat here from Mad Productions. You couldn't use the wire, then cut the extra off, then plastic weld to add some filler material. I could have done the wire, then tried to do a zip tie, but the problem is I need to retain that slot. So I can't overfill the slot. And it's almost better to just leave it at that point than it is to try to patch it in. Because once we try patching it in, if we overweld, it's not going to clip together anyway. So this one isn't nearly as important as this tab that we just did. This tab is the most important because this is an actual mounting point for this. So we have a tab here. We have a tab here. Those two tabs are all that hold this whole panel on. And this is basically a windshield for the radiator. So we need it in there. We need that support and we need to be able to direct that airflow through. This is just going to sit on the top of here anyway, and that piece only sits on top of the radiator. So that piece doesn't have anything that's going to be affected by wind. And then there was a shield that I showed you guys that goes in the front bumper to cover up the top part of the airflow going in. The reason that they have that is that top piece on the grill for a Malibu, you don't need airflow up there. There's no radiator up there. The radiator's down lower by the license plate. And then it sits behind the crash bar. I'll show you guys that when we go to put this piece in there finally. But yeah, I thought about that idea too. And the reason I opted against it is I didn't want to fill in that slot because I need that slot. All right, let's go back to the car, everybody. Let's start working on this thing. We need to get some stuff done. All right, so here we are. Come on, guys, I don't have a single like yet today. Please hit that like button for me. So we turn this sideways to get this down in here. We need to get this little tab about halfway down to the bumper, and then we turn it. And then this sits in the bumper. This gets attached down here to a plastic panel. This gets attached up on top with a plastic clip. And I'll show you guys that once I get this in there. Okay, so there it is, just like so. There it is, hiding in there just the way we need it. Let me grab one of my clips and we're going to snap that one in right now. Alright, I got a bunch of new clips, and I don't know if this will be the right bag for this, but we're going to try it. Yep. So, right there, that is the same style as factory. I'll bring you guys in so you can see it. So that's our new one. That's factory. So this side we never took apart because there was no damage over here. All the damage was on this corner of the car. And what happened was it cracked that front bumper up really bad. Basically, the butt of the deer hit right here. It bent this bar slightly, cracked this panel, but damaged all of the bumper stuff, destroying the grills. There's many pieces of the grill that I've already thrown away that were just completely damaged. All right, so down in the comments right now, guys, let me know, do we do headlights, or do you guys want to see me start putting the plastic pieces underneath the car? So right now, headlights or plastic? I need to know which one you guys want to see. There's a few things with the headlights that I want to show you guys because there's a little different setup on it. All right, come on, guys. What do you want to see? Do you want to see the headlights go on next, or do you want to see some plastic pieces get reassembled? Kind of holding up here on you guys to kind of see which direction you guys want me to go. Okay. All right, come on, guys. Tell me what you guys want to see next. We've got a few different directions we can go here. We can either start with the headlights, get that last headlight put on the vehicle. I can show you all the stuff with that. Or we can start taking the tire off, or we can start putting plastic pieces on. I do need to know which direction you guys want me to take this now. So down in the comments, plastic, rim, or headlight. So, come on, we want to see it. I want you guys to kind of be engaged with this as we go with this project. Try to give you guys options of stuff that you guys want to see once we've done our main project. Today our main project was the plastic welding. To be able to get that piece in there, get it welded in solid so it wasn't moving around, causing a bunch of problems. Again, that piece broke from when I had the deer hit. So I'm going to take it you guys don't care which one I really do at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick one. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put the headlight in. So what I'm going to cover with the headlights is the stock ones. The one seemed to be broken. And I said seemed because once I took it apart, the headlight wasn't broken. But before I took it apart, it was loose inside the socket. Some of that was related to the inside piece of the fender being slightly bent from the deer hit. I had to bend that panel back out to where it belonged so that I could put the headlight in it. But because I already bought my headlights that I have, we're going to do the headlight upgrade. The reason we're doing the upgrade is because we're doing LEDs. Now, these are not normal LEDs. A lot of people will just slap in factory LEDs. You'll see one that looks somewhat normal, but then there's one with a high capacitor fan on it. I'll explain the differences as we're putting them in. The reason that I'm doing this is the headlights I originally had in the car were awesome. They worked great. And I wanted to keep them because that allowed me to see at night. Right now, my new job, I don't drive that far at night with that car. So I don't need the super bright headlights, but since I already got them, why should I waste the bulbs? Keep them in there because I knew they were working. I did try the new bulbs in the one headlight because I have a pack. I thought about putting both in there and just keeping the other ones as spares, but I chose to keep the stock big LEDs in there because they just worked so much better. They were so much brighter. The reason that we should do the headlight replacements, I'll bring you guys over. We're going to cover this right now. So, guys, make sure you hit the like button. I'm dropping some solid knowledge here on you guys when it comes to headlights. So, factory headlights, like so. There's a lot more refracting going on in this headlight, meaning that the light bounces around a lot more before it's projected out. This vehicle does not have projector headlights, meaning that the light will bounce around because there's a shield in front of the high beam or low beam light. The high beam is wide open. Once you hit your high beam, that light blasts out. There's nothing causing it to have to work to get around a shield. Because it has to work to get around the shield, it uses all these chrome and dull chrome. So all of this is a refractor, meaning that it takes the light, refracts it out, and then condenses it farther out away from the vehicle. That's how these work. The ones we're putting in have less refracting in it because it's using LED. The LED is bright enough that it overpowers this light. So when you put an LED in a stock light like this, what happens is it actually gets to be too bright for everyone else driving. And the only way to fix that is to put the right light in it to begin with. Now, we will have to remove our components off of this light. I need this LED. I need this wire harness, and I'm going to use my turn signal bulbs. The reason I'm doing that this way is because I'm going to keep these lights as spares. There's nothing wrong with these now that I know that my passenger side one is not damaged, but since I have the bumper apart, this is a perfect time to do this repair. Again, this whole project is something you guys could do it in your own home, your own garage, your own driveway. You just need to plan out the repair like I have done here. When I took all of the bumper off and all the plastic off, the reason we went for the timing before we started putting anything back together was we knew we were going to be crawling around this car. We knew we needed access to do that timing. It was a lot easier on us to not have a bumper in the way. We were able to access the front of the motor easier. We were able to access the top without having to lean over all the painted parts and scratch them. We planned out this repair this way. Now, I had a friend help me with the timing behind the scenes. That's why I'm saying we. And I also have staff that I have helping me behind the scenes. They're not here today, but yeah. So this is what we got. We're going to go ahead and pull this wire harness, and we're going to pull that bulb. That has to go into our new one. I'll explain the differences once we get the bulbs out. I'll explain the differences in the LEDs. So here is our brand new non-refracting LED light. And the reason I'm saying non-refracting, down here, this is black plastic, right here. This is not chrome, meaning it's not going to reflect the same way. It's going to have a different amount of light that it's giving off based on the interior design of the light. That's the reason we went with this. So I'm going to peel some of the tape off of these, because when they do this, oftentimes they tape them up so nothing can get down into the holes. Okay. All right. So we've opened up everything on the back of the light here. We pulled the plastics off of all of these holes. What we can do right now, before we get too carried away, is we can go ahead and put in the high beam. But before I do that, I want to disconnect and take out this wire harness and this high beam. So this has a little clip here. You just wiggle this. It comes off right here. And then we just slowly feed this wire out to where it's loose. This clip we're going to have to remove, and we do that with 2 flat screwdrivers and wiggle it off of the clip. So right here, we go on each side and wiggle down. I'm going to set this up a little different. I want to do this with it sitting down. Bring you guys around. Guys, there's 68 of you in here. Please hit that like button. Help grow this channel. We're trying to bring you guys new content every week. We need to grow this channel this year. It's important that we get the subscribers and the views. The views are what drive any live broadcasts. Okay, so on each side of the clip, we want to wiggle it down, just like that. So, all you're going to do is go on either side, twist out, and wiggle it down. That's it. That's all that you have to do to get those out. Next, we're going to use a needle nose pliers. And the reason I'm going to use needle nose is some of these can be kind of hard to remove. So we have this one over here. This one's already LED. This is a clearance light, corner clearance light. Next we have the turn signal. Okay. All right, so now all that's left is our high beam. I'm going to pull this high beam out, but I'm going to show you guys a trick. Don't touch this with your hands. The oil in your hands can wreck that bulb. All right, so I use a blue shop towel, and then I'll just twist it out, carefully pull it away. Okay. So here's our wire harness. I'm going to take and set my light off to the side for now. we're going to grab this one here. Okay. This is my high beam, so I'm going to set my high beam in. And then once I got it in place, I'm going to twist it down. Okay, I'll take this away. I had to kind of do this a little differently, guys, because I had to make sure that it got in there. So, the one with the big fan is what we call a high power LED. This one will generate a lot more light. It can generate a lot more heat. This one here is more of your standard. You don't want to touch anything beyond that rubber seal. So you can grab the back of it, but don't grab anything else. So what we're doing is we're installing the other LED. Okay. So there we go. Here's our other LED. Now we can feed our harness up. And I'm going to clip this into place. Fish this one into here, because that's where that wire was. Okay. I can grab my clearance light. Pop my clearance light in. And this one's a quarter turn. Not even really kind of a quarter turn, it's even less than that. So this wire here has to go under this prong right here. And then there's a zigzag that it clips down into. I'll show you guys that once I get it fished in there. So the reason we have to route these the way we're routing them is to keep the wires from getting pinched when we install this. If we don't do this, the wires could get pinched, and then the headlights won't even come on. Okay, I'm going to pop this one down in here, and I'm going to show you the routing on the wires once we get everything settled in here. Okay, this is the one I had to fight before, which is why I grabbed the needle nose. So, aftermarket lights sometimes, guys, are not the best castings. They don't always have the best castings. So, in order to do this, sometimes you have to get creative. Press it down and use the needle nose to kind of walk it down in. You don't want to put too much force, because if you do, you're going to break these tabs off. I want to get enough that it's not going to wiggle loose. Alright, that's as good as I care to get it. Okay, I'm going to get you guys up. I'm going to show you guys what's going on. All right, thank you everyone for hitting that like button. That really does help. So, 81 with 81 of you in here, I'd love to see that like button over 15. That would be amazing, guys. All right. So here's the routing of this wire. This has a clip on it, right here. So it fishes in, comes around the top side, then wraps back down underneath, comes around to here, then down across here, looping back into here before going up around here to this light, and this wire lays up here. Now normally this wouldn't be sitting here. It would be like this one that's clipped in. But this is a high powered LED, so this one's going to be a lot brighter. And because that's a lot brighter, we're going to need to be able to give it a little bit of room. Now, luckily for me, the car gives us enough room for these larger LEDs that have the big fans on the back side. Anytime you see the big fans on them, usually they're going to have a higher output, meaning they're going to put out more light. These oftentimes would just be a stock replacement, and they're only going to put out the same amount of light that a stock bulb would. I'm not saying it's bad, but if I have the option and I have the bulbs, why don't I run the better stuff? It just makes more sense. So now that we've got our headlight assembled, now we're ready to go back in with our headlight. Alfonso, good thing you mentioned that a lot of people touch with their hands. Yes, guys, whatever you do, when you have the high-powered ones like this, do not touch these at all. Grab them with a blue shop towel, or sometimes they come with a glove. Make sure you use that on that bulb. The oil from your hand destroys those, so you do not want to touch them. These, like I said, these are a stock replacement. As long as you don't touch on the other side of that blue seal, you're all right. But once you touch on the other side of the blue seal, it's going to have the same effect. So we don't want to touch that. It's the same thing with your halogen and your xenon bulbs. If you have a halogen bulb or a xenon bulb, once you touch it, that fingerprint is left on the bulb, and you can't really rub it off. Trust me, I've tried. The oil gets onto that lens, and it'll burn that light out like that. It doesn't happen maybe immediately once you fire it up, but once that bulb gets to operating temp, that's when it'll go, because that oil gets burnt into it, and it'll actually cause it to break the filament inside. So we don't want to touch filaments at all, ever. Never touch a filament. Even if you're just doing standard small LEDs like the one in this one, you don't want to touch the filament. If you got to touch the filament, use something between the bulb and your fingers. All right, we're ready. Let's get this bulb in. And we got some other stuff that I want to do today. Like I said, I got to get this car completely up on jack stands because I need that ramp for next week. All right, so next we can plug our bulb in. And by plugging in our bulb, we're actually plugging in all of them. There's one plug right here that clips into that main harness that you guys saw me wiggling into place. So now that that's in, I'm going to take my screws out, or bolts. I got two bolts, one here and one over here. I'll show you guys these locations, and we will tighten these down because once they go in, I don't need to take these back out. Now, putting these in are a little tricky. The best is to try to line it up straight. And then it'll get pressed up into place. One side that doesn't want to catch where I want it to go. There's one clip on the top side of the fender here. I'm going to bring you guys around so you can see that. So right up underneath there, there's a clip holding it in place right here. It's got to hit that tab. Right now it doesn't want to hit that tab very well. So if it gives me too much trouble, I'm going to see if the tab is bent, and then we might have to try to get a little bit more aggressive with getting it pushed in. There we go. Now it went in perfect. Okay, so I'll show you guys why I was fighting it. There we go. Big unreveal with the plastic removed. So, what I was trying to line up when we were doing this was this gap right here. It had a big gap because it wasn't catching the inside piece of that fender. It was trying to pull out away from that clip, causing there to be a big gap here. Again, this side, you can see how flush and tight that is to that fender. So that's how we line those up. Like I said, sometimes we have to wrestle them into place. That happens. Okay, so these are 10mm bolts. I'll show you guys the bolt here in just a bit. Right here. These are our bolts. Okay. Grab my wrench quick. All right, so I'm going to tighten this one first. And I'm not trying to go super tight with this. So my hand actually grabs on the back side of this ratchet. I'm not grabbing way out here and putting a bunch of torque on this. If I did that, I'm going to twist this off or possibly damage the headlight. Okay, so there we go. Our headlights are in. So now we've got the grill pieces back in that were for the fan shroud. We got both headlights in. I've already installed one wheel liner because I wanted to see how good a quality these were. I'll be showing you guys that other wheel liner when we do that. My goal right now for today though is I really want to get that ramp out of there. And the reason I want to get that ramp out is because next week's video we're going to be doing and talking about buying used cars. I'm going to do a 2025 edition of the buying used cars video. I did one last year as a live. I'm going to do a new one updated for this year. There's a few things that have changed this year that I really want you guys to know. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to be placing this car on jack stands. And I'm going to be using a very large jack stand. I'm going to use a 6-ton stand. Bigger than what I need, but that way I know that the vehicle is supported. And the reason we're doing this is I want that ramp back and I want that rim and tire off. The reason why these tires are shot, we're going to be doing a tire video coming up in the future on that. Also, there's something, once I get the tire off, I'm going to show you guys something that we're going to be doing. Alright guys, so my mods are in here, guys. Mods, please hit up the chats. I need to know if you guys are in here by chance. So mods, please hit that up. Guys, please get that like up. That's how we engage and how we get more views. That will really help us grow this so that we can keep doing projects like this for you guys. The old me would not use a creeper to line up my jack, but I'm getting older, guys. To be honest with you, it's better if I use it. What I'm trying to do is carefully go up without upsetting the other jack stand. I want to make sure the tire's loose like you guys see. I'll slide this ramp on it. And I want to get this jack stand placed right away and get it set back down. Okay, if you guys got any questions, chat those in. We'll try to help you guys with your projects at home. I don't think any of my mods are in today. That's kind of strange. Usually some of my mods are in. So for everyone here, in order to make it into the wrench squad here, all you need to do is help people out with their projects in the chat. Add value to the content that we put out. And I will gladly give you guys a wrench. So I pay attention to the chats pretty close. Anybody that's giving useful information that's solid, that is easy to prove and helps out people in the chat, you guys get wrenched up pretty quickly. And I have wrenched people in a single chat time. So all right, so we're going after this rim. We want this off of here. Yep. So the tire I took off is marginally at the point that it needs to be replaced. The other one that was on the other side is below the wear bars. And I'll show you guys those wear bars in just a bit. You might be asking, why are we going through all the work to pull the tires now when we could just put the bumper on it and let the car down? It's because as I showed towards the beginning of the video, this strut has to go. That strut cannot stay. And when we change that strut, we're actually going to be changing the sway bar end links at the same time. These factory Malibus have a plastic sway bar end link. Bad idea in my mind. What it does is it creates flex at the sway bar end link. I'll bring you guys in and I'll explain all this quick. I know I've shown you guys some of this before. All right. Everybody, we're at 6 lights. Please get those up. All right, so here's what we've got going and what we have to do to this car before I can put the rims and tires back on it and set it back down on the ground. This strut has to get taken out. The strut is too old. It doesn't hold pressure properly. I've noticed spots where it's leaking up here, and the amount of compressions this shock has taken in its lifetime, the shock is used up. So what is the... Actually, hold on. Let me show you guys the sway bar end link, and then I'll turn you guys around for this next part. All right, so here is that. In my mind, this is a very stupid design for a sway bar end link. This is plastic. And when you go around a corner, what this link is meant to do is to keep this side steady with the other side of the car. This connects your driver and passenger side together, meaning that it won't flex too hard on one side or the other when you take a hard corner. It'll keep the car level when you're going into hard corners. This is plastic. This will flex. You put enough pressure on it, it could extend down or it could get jammed up. Plastic is not a material they should have used on a sway bar. In my mind, that was a very, very bad idea. What we also have is you guys see a wire hanging there. Chat down in the comment if you guys know why that wire is in there. I'll give you guys a little bit while I spin you around, and I'm going to explain why we need to change those and at what mileage we need to do that. But while I'm doing that, chat down in the comment below, what is that wire for? All right. So why do we change these shocks and struts? Well, the reason that there's a service interval on them is because as they take hits from the vehicle being supported by those shocks and struts, to every pothole you hit, to every little crack in the road, those absorbers are taking the hit. They're the ones absorbing that damage. If you didn't have that and it was a full solid vehicle, it would be so rough that it would actually break your back. That's why they have suspension on cars, because without it, we can't drive as fast as we do, and it would physically hurt you. So we need the shocks. All right, so why the service interval? Because the amount of hits that will take during one drive is really crazy, because each compression is considered a hit in the shock. And usually they can only sustain so many. Normally that mileage range is about 75,000 to 90,000. That's normally where they want you to put those in. We're going to be coming up on champagne bubbles, probably needing that within the next 30,000 miles. This one we may go to 100,000 on these shocks and struts if I don't notice anything really crazy with them. Now the Malibu has 140 on it, meaning that those are due. And more than likely, those are due a lot more than these, because these are only 5 years old. Those, it's a 2012. That means it's well over 12 years old. That long means that you're going to have those shocks wear out a lot faster. And what can happen is over time, it'll get sloppy, it'll get spongy. Malibus are known for this in the rear shocks, right there. Those rear shocks are known for going out, causing the back end to sag, and when you hit a bump, the back of the vehicle waves. and it doesn't want to stop bouncing. That's because those shocks have went bad. That is a typical Malibu problem. Again, that could be also almost labeled a typical GM problem, because GM has had problems with this way back in the day. They had vehicles back in the 80s and 90s that were the same way. It's because of the unibody design of the cars nowadays. The shocks are no longer an absorber, they're actually supports to the vehicle. So when they fail, it causes the vehicle to have a floating feeling. That floating feeling is because there's no resistance in the shock providing stabilization. And the only thing you're riding on are the cheap springs that they put in these cars. Now, a prime example of cheap springs are definitely the Malibus in the back of this car. Now, could we beef up this car and maybe be able to tow a small little trailer with it? We could, but why? I don't see no point. This car is for fuel mileage. And with what we've done to the motor, again, I have a video out on that. If you guys, when you get a chance after this one, go check that out. We did plugs and wires, plugs and coils on this vehicle already, because the wire is part of the coil. And when we did that, we replaced them with E3 spark plugs. Excellent spark plug. I will not say anything bad about E3 spark plugs. And when we do the engine build for Crimson Vortec, that is getting E3 spark plugs. The reason for those is because it's better fuel mileage, better performance, better horsepower. It just makes more sense to put in the good stuff and stop messing around with parts that wear out quickly or that have problems. All right, let's see if you guys got any questions. Oh, bonjour from France. Good to have you in the chat today. I like seeing my my followers from overseas. It's interesting to hear what you guys run into over there versus what we see over here. Where I live in the Rust Belt. We have vehicles that rust out all the time. Crimson Vortec is my winter vehicle. You guys have seen it on the channel before. I've got plenty of videos on that vehicle. That one is my one that I need for my four-wheel drive. Malibu Steel is our 2012 Malibu. That one I was using for fuel mileage when I worked at a different job. I now work a lot closer to home, so I don't necessarily need this Malibu, but I'm going through and doing everything for you guys here on the channel. And what this means is that you guys are seeing what can happen when maybe you buy a used car that you think might be good, but it turns out that it really isn't. I'm going to be covering that all next week. With this car apart, it's going to be easier for me to do this video. Plus, I'm actually doing this for another customer of mine. They're bringing in a Suburban. They want me to check this Suburban over top to bottom, find out what's leaking, what isn't, where the brakes are at, where everything is at as far as what kind of shape the vehicle's in. Now, on ours, we've already done a few items, but I'm going to cover those when we do that video. This is going to be an updated 2025 version of the 2024 used cars. Last momentum. So should I do the strut mounts when I change the front struts? All right, guys, let me cover this right now. Here's a big problem I see a lot of people do. You know what? Because you chatted that in, I'm going to spoil the surprise for you guys. We're going to pull one out of the box, and I'm going to explain to you guys why I do struts the way I do them. Give me just a bit here, guys. I got to set up my plastic welder from today's video, and I got to set everything down off of here. All right, let's go over this. When I do struts, I don't mess around with struts that are not pre-assembled. Guys, hit that like button, because what I'm about to give you is solid knowledge. This is how a normal person who works on their own cars would do this, because there are components that if you try to reuse them, it doesn't work. Here we go. whenever you do a strut, the safest and easiest way to do them is like this. This is a complete strut assembly. The reason I do the full assemblies, I know some people are like, well, you can get it done cheaper if you just replace the shock portion of it. Yes, you can, but it isn't just the shock that takes damage every time you hit a pothole. The spring does as well. So you're already going to have to put a new spring on a new shock. Here's what they're not telling you at the repair shops. This is what a lot of people don't tell you. I'm going to give you guys the solid knowledge. So please hit that like button right now, because I'm going to drop you guys some solid knowledge about the top hats to these struts. These top hats need to be replaced. There's bearings inside this. And you want to know why there's a bearing inside of it? Because this end attaches to the spindle. When that spindle turns, so here's our strut. When that spindle turns, it's turning up top as well, because it's spinning that inside here. There's a bearing inside here. This is why I do not take these apart. You can take a spring compressor and pull these apart. There's plenty of videos online of them pulling this and taking it apart. There's plenty of these exploding when they pull them apart. Here's the thing. I have the knowledge and the ability to take this apart without using a spring tool, without having to do anything too crazy. What most people don't realize, these springs in its rested state, like it is now, it's rested, meaning that the only pressure here is the pressure from here. When you take this nut loose, you need to support here, you need to support here, and you need to support this top hat. That can be done by placing it on the ground, having the bottom of it locked. With welding gloves, you press down on the top hat and have someone else pull that nut. Now, don't have your face over the top, but you can hold it and it'll just pop up. That's it. Where these springs get crazy dangerous. This is where I've seen mechanics get hurt, guys. They try to compress this spring. The spring already has pressure on it. Yes, it's in its rested state, but it's not completely relaxed. A completely relaxed spring, you can't put this top hat on. When you pull this top hat, it'll pop up. And now, it's not going to go shooting this up unless you're doing something totally insane. And the insane thing is when people lay them down on the ground, put their impact here, and just go like this. Because what happens is you're not controlling any of the energy here. None of this is controlled. It wants to go everywhere like a grenade. That's why they call these things grenades when that happens. When you flip them like this, and you place them on the floor, and you're holding the top hat and the bottom of the strut. I'm going to show you guys where my feet are. So, when you have them in your feet like this, hands here, your pressure is only going to go in one fashion, straight up. When you pull this nut, you can't do this trick by yourself. Because if you do, as you're holding one side and you're taking this off with the impact, it's going to want to kick. That kick becomes dangerous. If you're holding it like this, and you have somebody take this nut off, it's going to go like this. Boom. And that's it. Because once the pressure is released, as long as the bottom's stabilized and the top hat is stabilized, you can take these apart. Because when they do this in a shop, that's what they do. When they go to compress this spring to pull this apart, they're compressing the spring and it's being supported on the bottom. It's being supported on the top. They're compressing the spring, and then they can take the nut off. You're doing the same thing when you hold it with your feet and right here with welding gloves. Don't stick your fingers in here because you can pinch your fingers. Don't do that. Got to keep them out. You're only trying to hold down on the top hat for when it pops straight up. And it will only come straight up as long as you have the bottom supported. Guys, hit that like button. I just gave you guys the reason that these things grenade. A lot of people are not telling you that. These things grenade because people take them apart the wrong way. They leave them to where there's no stabilization when they take them apart. Now, if we were going to put this back together, let's say all the components were new, we're going to put everything back together, we can't force it back down. You have to use a spring compressor, compress this spring in order to get the top hat on. If you don't do that, you will cross thread the part on here that has the threads. Once you cross thread that, the shock is done. It won't work. So if you're ever putting them back together, you have to put the spring compressor on. But where most people in a shop get hurt, including mechanics, is the spring compressors. This is the reason I do complete assembly replacements. I do not do partial replacements. Again, my reasoning for that is these things only take so many hits before they get wore out. These springs are also taking the same hits, so why would I risk running a new part and a used part in something that's taking just as many hits? I might as well replace the whole component. The other factor is this top hat. I don't ever reuse top hats, no matter what. Even if I had to pull one apart, I would never reuse a top hat. That bearing on the inside, when that goes bad, you're having to put in a strut anyway. So complete assemblies are the way to go. Yes, they might cost you, this strut could probably be about 35, 40 bucks. The complete assembly is maybe 80. I paid a little bit more than that and it was well worth it. Makes more sense. Thank you. No problem. I hope that answers your question. And guys, you just saw the sneak peek of what is coming on this car in the next week or so. Well, probably 2 weeks. Because like I said, next week we've already got our video planned. But this gives you guys kind of a sneak peek of what's to come. All right, guys, we're almost at 10. Somebody please hit that like button. Let's get us up. Like I said, I'd love to see us at 15. 15 would really help with the engagement on the channel. All the viewership today has been awesome. You guys have tuned in. Viewership has stayed up through the entire pod. This is awesome. Like I said, I'm doing this to bring you guys content, bring you guys ways that you can do your own repairs. And I'm trying to show you guys everything. So I'm not trying to take shortcuts. When people take shortcuts on projects like this, what it does is it hurts you guys as far as knowing what to do. So you might be asking, why did we go through all this stuff? Why did we take it apart in the sequence that we took it apart? There's a good reason. So I had the deer hit. I knew I needed to do motor work. I knew I had all this stuff going on. Because I knew that I had that, the plan was to shut it down for the winter and start tearing it down. Now, the tear down didn't go as fast as I wanted to because I got held up with other things to where I couldn't get at it right away. As I started getting into it, we started taking the bumper off. We saw what was broke, what I needed to buy, what I needed to replace. I found a bumper support bracket that I was missing that I had to order. That's in. We're good to go. And I was trying to find those radiator pieces that we fixed, which is why I bought the plastic welding kit. So we could weld that back together, get that put back in it, and get the headlight put back in it. Next, we're going to have probably our splash shields underneath. And we're going to start tearing it down to get those struts out. Now, we're going to run into a few problems doing those struts in the future here, and I'm going to show you guys where we're going to have those problems. Again, I live in the Rust Belt. So, where we're going to have problems is right here. So this, I'm not too concerned with this. That looks like it's just attached to this bottom bolt right here that you guys can barely see. So I'll have to pull these two bolts out. I've got to get my sway bar end link disconnected. And if this sway bar end link gives me problems, I'm going to cut it right here through the plastic. I'm not going to worry about this plastic because we're not going to keep this. This is a poor design. I don't like plastic pieces on sway bar components because it's designed to keep that sway bar from having any flex in it. It's designed to be under pressure when you're cornering. This is going to flex. Plastic is not the way to go with that. For whatever reason, they thought they could go cheap and they could do it that way. My new ones are all metal. There is no plastic in them. And then we're going to have to get the top strut, that top hat out. Now the top hat is not going to be bad, guys. There's only 3 bolts that hold that top hat in. And those will come apart pretty easy. The challenge, I think, is going to be right here where we've got all this rust and corrosion. What I'm going to do to kind of help my situation is I'm going to soak this down with some penetrating spray, both the bolts, and I'm going to try to spray in here. That way I can get a little bit of lubrication in here. That way when I get to the point that I'm changing these out, maybe I can take an air chisel and go down in between these and pop these two apart. Because I have this car so high off the ground, I have to watch a few things. I have to watch to make sure I don't tear my brake line. I have to make sure that my whole suspension doesn't drop down and hit the ground. So I'm going to want my jack underneath supporting when I pull this all apart. This is kind of a sneak peek of things to come, guys. So if you got any questions about your projects, hit them up now. Or if there's anything you guys want to chat about in the chat, let's do that, because we're gonna get to where we're gonna be wrapping this video up here shortly. I've done a lot. I got a lot to clean up yet today, but I think for next week we are going to be talking. We are going to be talking about you guys buying used cars and what to watch out for. What we're also going to do is start getting into other things that we need to do to get this car down on the ground. Because here's the thing, even though we get the front end down on the ground, we're not done. I got to turn the car around and get the back end up because we got rear wheel bearings to do. We're throwing codes on this car for the traction control, which is a dead indication, and it's been scanned, but the scans are not clear. And I'll explain that when we go to do that wheel bearing. The codes are not clear to say it is a wheel bearing like it was back in the day. Back in the day, it would give you a code related to ABS. That ABS would tell you which side was going bad. On the newer ones, all it does is throw the traction control light on, and it basically turns off any StabiliTrak stuff. Once it does that, you need to figure out which wheel bearing it is that goes bad. On the Malibus, it isn't normally a front one that goes bad. It's always in the back. And some of that is because when those shocks wear out, the back end is bouncing more. So those wheel bearings are hitting the ground harder. And it damages those wheel bearings. Now, we might be able to take it apart, spin one of them, and we'll know which one it is. Sometimes it cracks on the back side of the wheel bearing, and that crack in that cap allows moisture in. That moisture will then throw the code. Either way, the wheel bearing would have to be replaced. We can't just fix the cap because it's all internal. Everything's pressed in. We can't pull that back apart and fix that. So it's a hub assembly. We would be pulling the 4 bolts, pulling the hub off, putting a new hub on. When I do wheel bearings, guys, I do not buy the super cheap wheel bearings. It's a really, really bad idea, and oftentimes it'll come back to bite you. So I try to avoid eBay wheel bearings unless it's a name brand that I trust. AC Delco, Moog, any of those would be fine. I stay away from ones that don't have a name. I stay away from any that have a name that I can't pronounce or that I don't know the company. Because if I don't know the company, there's a good chance it's coming from overseas and that wheel bearing isn't going to be as high a quality. Now, I'm not saying that, stuff made in other countries is bad. It's that certain products are made cheaper somewhere else. And when they're made cheaper somehow. Either they're made cheaper through the labor or they're made cheaper through putting bad quality parts in it. And anytime you have something that's assembled like a hub, it's easy to buy cheap bearings. And sometimes the cheap bearings just don't last. They start going out, they start making noise, they start falling apart. And this is why I avoid anything that's not really an OEM wheel bearing. So I try to stick to OEM. I have used Moog in the past, and I've had really good luck with Moog wheel bearings. I also use AC Delcos if it's a GM. Otherwise, if it's Kia, sometimes I'll buy directly from Kia. But yeah, I stay away from any of that other stuff that isn't a big name brand stuff. So, all right. If you guys got any questions, get them in now, or you got any topics that you guys want to talk about. I was thinking about putting the splash shields on today, but we're already about an hour and a half in. Maybe if you guys want to see that, if you guys want to see me get the splash shields in today, chat that in, and we can get going on that. Had a lot of viewers today. It's been an awesome day. We've had quite a bit of stuff that we got done and ready for next week. Oh, there was one thing I was going to show you guys. All right. So why was it so important that I pulled my tires off? It wasn't just that I have to get new tires. That's one of it. The other thing is I wanted to get these tires balanced with new tires on it that were in good shape with new sensors in them so that it reads the tire pressure properly. I do have one or two tires that are kind of glitchy. I have one that goes flat on me. So that has to get fixed. But here's something, this is more trivial, this is more cosmetic. This is what us car guys do. Whenever we want to do something custom with our cars, we start with the small projects. We don't get carried away and usually do big stuff that we're not really ready for. We'll start doing more of the small stuff. And one small thing that bugs me about this car is the gold bow ties. I've removed all the gold bow ties on this car except for the rims. Now I could buy standard caps that don't have any bow tie on them. I could buy just black ones and snap those in there, but they're not going to look as good. So one project that we're going to be doing is we're going to be taping this off, and we're going to be spraying this bow tie with material that will be durable enough to go through car washes to where we're not going to rubber scratch off this bow tie. And this is going to be one project that I want to do on all four wheels. So I'm going to have to tape them, scuff them, and paint them. As we do that, we're going to start doing a little bit of the stuff that, people would do in their driveways or in their personal time when they're working on their cars. A little detailing stuff just kind of helps personalize it to you. It doesn't have to be a big thing. And we do some of this on this channel as well. So we do some of the little cosmetic. One little cosmetic I did is I bought these badges. Right here. And I put those on there because there wasn't much for Malibu labeling on the car. And I kind of did it more of a custom style, but I kept it kind of in a factory location. So normally these cars do not have a Malibu LT badge on them. I put that on there. And I bought the ones that were already lined up so I didn't have to line up each letter. That's another important factor whenever you're doing anything custom. Make sure that you do it in a way that you don't have to fight and then it doesn't look right. You want it to actually look like it belonged there or was part of the car originally. And that's the way I did those badging. They came already set up to where it was just a peel and press on, and it lined up all of them for me. And what I actually did was I used painter's tape And I did 2 rows of painter's tape here. And what I did is I lined this up to the bottom of the painter's tape. So that way I knew I was straight with that molding. Now, the only reason I could trust that molding is because that molding has not been removed from this car. This car does not have a bunch of overspray on it or shows damage that it was painted. If I thought it was and I didn't think it was accurate, I would go off this bottom line down here on the bottom of the door and go up. But I did not have any indication that this thing had been repainted like that. If you guys want me to cover that, we could probably do that. Margaret, Ellen, do you do fender flares? So I have put fender flares on vehicles. I have put different styles on, some more off-road. Fender flares are sometimes more custom. Sometimes they're painted to match the vehicle a little bit better. The best trick is to try to stick to a stock style, meaning if it came with flares, try to use a stock style flare. Usually some of your more higher end models will have fender flares on them. Those are designed to be able to put bigger wheels on it. If you have that option in the vehicle you're driving, then it's really easy because you can just grab the stock ones. Usually it's double-sided tape and a few screws up underneath the lip area to hold it in place. As long as you have that, it's pretty easy to put those on. If you do something more aftermarket custom where you need to cut the wheel wells away, those are a lot more evasive and they require a lot more work. The minute you have to start cutting panels to put flares on, you're already talking about an extreme off-road vehicle. That's going to come with other challenges because when you cut the supports away, when you cut that fender away, you're cutting away some of the support that holds that fender into place, meaning you're going to have to re-brace that. So stay away from anything that you have to slice and dice your metal panels and just try to use stock style flares and you should be all right. So hopefully that answers your question. I'll give you guys just a little bit longer to chat in and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. So we had a pretty good day. We got a few things done. We got our plastic welding done. We got our headlights on it. We got the car jacked up and the tire pulled off so that I can get tires put on the front and new sensors for the tire pressure sensors. Anytime you're doing tires, guys, always do the rebuild kits on your tire pressures or tire pressure sensors. Always put the new valve stems in it with the batteries and the whole new. If you don't do that and those go bad, you're going to have to pull your brand new tires off. You're going to have to mess up the wheel balancing anyway. So it's better to just do it in one shot and not have to re-go back in and do a bunch of stuff. That's the whole point of this project that I'm showing you guys. I knew everything that was wrong with the car. I knew everything I needed to do to the car. So when I did this, I laid it all out in my head and I already decided how I was going to do this project. I was going to keep peeling away and get everything fixed, and then I was going to start building it back up. Now, unfortunately, we got to do this on the front and the back. So it's not just going to be a simple, now we're ready to go ahead and put the whole front end back together and get it on the ground and we're done, we can leave. Once I do this, I might drive it for a week or two to make sure everything's solid in the front, but then I got to bring it back in and we got to pull the back end apart. So that's what these projects sometimes mean. They mean that we're not done until we're done. And sometimes being done means we got to take it down to where we're no longer have broken parts or no longer have an issue. Then we can put the stuff back together. And for the motor on this one, we needed a lot of the splash guards already taken out. When I took those splash guards out, I knew this was the perfect time to do that timing chain. It was the perfect time to do a belt tensioner and a new serpentine belt. It was the perfect time to do that. Guys, you're going to want to check out that video on the engine stuff. I've done 2 engine videos for the Malibu, both plugs and wires, or plugs, coils, and wires, and we did our timing. Those are really good videos if you're trying to save yourself some money. You take it to a shop and try to do timing, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Average shop price right now can be anywhere from 120 to 160 an hour. So just think of this project would have probably been about a 12, maybe 13-hour project. You guys do the math, it quickly adds up. You can easily have over $1,500 in labor just to do a timing chain. That don't include the parts. This is why sometimes a $2,000 timing chain, people are like, well, I'll let it ride if the motor's only $2,000. Mistake. The reason that it is because you're going to change the motor, you're putting in a used one. The used one needs the timing chain too, because oftentimes they're not going to be done when you get them. So not only are you spending $2,000 for the motor, but you're also going to spend $2,000 on doing that timing chain. You can't just drop that motor in the way it sits. So it's better to get at your maintenance. It's better to stay on top of your maintenance and know your maintenance intervals. I do help people from time to time with their maintenance intervals, depending on their vehicle, if they list them down below. So I do try to give them heads up. There is a customer of mine who just got an Audi, and it has the supercharger. So when that one comes in, I'm going to be recommending that we do a supercharger oil change. That oil change needs to be done before 80,000 miles. And if you take it to the dealer, they pull quite a bit of the motor apart to do it. They pull the supercharger out to change the oil. If you do it that way, it runs the bill up big time, and it costs a lot of money. There is a way to do it without pulling the supercharger. There's a way to pull enough pieces off. You have to get creative with your own custom tools to be able to get in, suck the oil out, and then put the new stuff back in. It is a process. So that one's coming up for the future, guys, too, but that one, I'm going to see how far out we are. I really want this Malibu done. It's going to be in the way for me doing a lot of other projects for customer stuff because I don't really want to tie up this other bay. I can't tie this up. This car has to sit in here. So I need this open. And the only way for me to keep that open is to get the Malibu done. Guys, I want to say thank you for all your support. Today has been really great. There's been a lot of viewers. You guys have hit that like button. I'll check subscribers afterwards, but guys, always, always, always take your time to figure out how you're going to do your projects. Make sure you plan them out. Make sure you have a plan and then execute that plan. And as long as you do that, you'll be all right. The biggest thing is don't leave it apart for very long periods of time. It gets very hard to put it back together. But as always, guys, thank you for all your support. Continue hitting the like button, the subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you get notified when we go live. I do this every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central. And as always, I'll see you guys on the next one.